Thomas J. Capano, the eldest son of custom home builder Louis J. Capano, was a politically connected lawyer who had worked as a public defender, a deputy attorney general, and city solicitor. He was managing partner of the Wilmington, Delaware office of Saul, Ewing, Remick, and Saul. In the 90s, Thomas was married for 24 years with 4 daughters, but had multiple mistresses, including Anne Marie Fahey. Anne Marie Fahey was a single, tall, pretty, and vivacious woman. She graduated from Dover's Wesley College in 1991 and started working for Governor Tom Carper. In 1993, Anne Marie and Thomas met, and she wrote the following in her diary on April 24, 1994. "I'm afraid because I am in love with a man who has a family. I fantasize my life with him all the time. He is very gentle, intelligent, handsome, and interesting. They were involved in an affair for 3 years until she wrote the following in her diary on April 7, 1996. I have finally brought closure to Tom Capano. What a controlling, manipulative, insecure, jealous maniac. For 1 whole year, I allowed someone to take control of every decision of my life." A year before, in September 1995, she met Michael R. Scanlon, the community affairs chief of MBNA America Bank, and wanted to end the affair with Thomas, but he threatened to expose the affair. On June 27, 1996, Anne Marie and Thomas was seen in public dining at the Ristorante Panorama in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 2 days later, Anne Marie's family tried to contact her and later went to her apartment, but she was nowhere to be found. Her family then reported her missing. The authorities started their investigation and then found her diary. An agent with the Wilmington Resident Agency of the FBI's Baltimore office heard about the case and offered his assistance to local authorities. As the case progressed, local, state, and federal authorities ultimately agreed to have the FBI take the lead on the investigation, given its resources and capabilities. The FBI put together an investigative team that included the Wilmington Police Department, the IRS, and the ATF. Because of Anne Marie's relationship with Thomas, the investigators quickly zeroed in on him as a suspect. He told the police that he had invited Anne Marie to dinner. He said that the evening went well, they exchanged pleasantries, and he saw her home. According to Thomas, they parted on good terms. The investigative team used a number of creative investigative techniques to determine what actually happened that night, including toll record analysis, seizure of emails from Thomas's law firm and Anne Marie's office. Also, surveillance, analysis of gun purchase records, 4 search warrants including a 4-day search of 2 landfills, psychological profiling, and analysis of financial records. The authorities also searched Thomas's home and car for blood and hair samples, ultimately finding bloodstains on a metal radiator cover and some woodwork. A blood bank search helped recover a container of blood that Anne Marie had donated weeks earlier, and forensic exams linked her blood to the blood found in Thomas's house. The FBI also recovered a 10-page letter written by Thomas, detailing facts about his relationship with Anne Marie. It contained a timeline that mentioned he had been with his younger brother, Gerard, in Stone Harbor, New Jersey, a day after Anne Marie was last seen. That turned the team's attention to Jerry, and eventually to Thomas's other brother, Louis. More than a year later, in November 1997, Gerard was arrested on various illegal substance and weapons charges. He agreed to cooperate in Anne Marie's case, and then his brother Louis followed suit. The brothers' story was a gruesome one. According to them, Thomas took Anne Marie's life and then forced her body into a large fishing cooler that he had purchased about 2 months earlier. Thomas and Gerard drove Gerard's boat some 70 miles off the New Jersey coast and dumped the cooler into the Atlantic Ocean. The cooler would not sink, so Gerard shot it full of holes with a shotgun that he kept on board for shark fishing. The cooler still would not sink, so Thomas lifted Anne Marie's body out of the cooler, wrapped 2 anchors around it, threw it overboard, and watched it sink. He then threw the cooler back into the water. The cooler was found by some fishermen, corroborating the brothers' story. Thomas also asked Gerard to help dispose of a blood-stained sofa and carpet into a dumpster, which was managed by their other brother, Louis. On November 12, 1997, the FBI agents arrested Thomas after they learned that he might be attempting to flee the country. On October 26, 1998, the state trial started and lasted 12 weeks. During the trial, one of Thomas's lovers, Debbie McIntyre, testified that about 6 weeks before Anne Marie's life was taken, Thomas ordered her to buy a gun and give it to him. With evidence mounting against him, Thomas changed his story. He claimed Debbie found him and Anne Marie together and threatened to take her own life with a gun. When Thomas tried to stop her, he said the gun went off by accident and ended Anne Marie's life. Thomas said he then disposed of the body to protect himself and Debbie. Prosecutor Ferris Wharton said the following in his opening argument: "That cooler became what he always intended it to become, Anne Marie Fahey's coffin." Thomas Capano had determined that if Anne Marie Fahey could not be manipulated to be with him, she would be with no one forever. In the end, the jury did not believe his story. On January 17, 1999, they voted to convict him for the slaying, and he was given the end-of-life penalty. In January 2006, the sentencing was appealed and changed to life in prison without parole. On September 19, 2011, 61-year-old Thomas passed away in his sleep at the James T. Vaughn Correctional Center State Prison in Smyrna, Delaware. He lost his life due to sudden cardiac arrest. Anne Marie's body was never found, so the manner of demise could not be established. Michelle Marie Fisher was a native of Sayville, New York, but moved to Raleigh to attend North Carolina State University in 1995 and graduated in 1999 with a degree in accounting. Michelle met Jason Lynn Young while out one night with friends, and in October 2003, they got married. The Youngs stayed in their home in the Enchanted Oaks subdivision near Lake Wheeler in Raleigh with their daughter Cassidy, born in 2004. In May 2006, the couple were involved in a single-car wreck outside Brevard, in which their Mitsubishi goes off a mountain road, down an embankment, and is partially submerged in a river. Michelle, pregnant at the time, suffers a miscarriage after the wreck, but a few months later, she was pregnant again with their son. On November 3rd, 2006, Michelle's sister, Meredith Fisher, got a text from Jason asking her to run an errand for him at the house. Meredith arrives at 1:30 p.m. to find her 29-year-old sister's body, cold, stiff, bloody, and face down in the master bedroom of the house. She finds the Young's 2-year-old daughter under the sheets of her parents' bed, uninjured and asking questions about what is wrong with her mother. Jason arrived at the home and told the police officers on the scene that he left the previous night to attend a business meeting in Hillsville, Virginia, and then he went to Brevard, North Carolina to visit his mother and stepfather. The autopsy shows that Michelle lost her life due to blows to her head that caused multiple skull fractures and brain hemorrhaging. She was also strangled, had 13 lacerations on the back of her head. Her lips were badly bruised and several of her teeth were knocked out. A strand of hair stuck in blood was found in her left hand. The autopsy finds no evidence of assault, but indicated that she was struck more than 30 times. During the detectives' investigation, the following were discovered. Blood was found in a Ford Explorer that was seized from Jason. They would later determine that the blood belonged to both Michelle and Jason. Jason was in nearly constant contact with a married Florida woman named Michelle Money, a former sorority sister of his wife's, in the months before Michelle Young's demise. They also found out that Michelle was stressed out over money and furious about a California vacation that her husband took without her. Jason also had substantial life insurance policies on his wife, later revealed to be worth $1 million. It was increased shortly before the car wreck they were involved in. Jason's computer was used to search the internet on topics including anatomy of a knockout, head trauma knockout, and divorce, before his wife was found deceased. The investigators suspected that little Cassidy was given an over-the-counter medication at the time her mother lost her life. In a turn of events, it was discovered that Jason had an affair with another woman. Days before Michelle lost her life, he sent an email to the woman saying, "I do not know how all this happened, but I know how it will end up. 2 broken hearts, but I do not care. I know there is pain in my future, but you are so worth it, even if it is only for a blink in time." Progress Energy, Michelle's former employer, offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction. More than a year after the crime, the investigators returned to the house to study marks and stains that had not been analyzed and saw that the house is up for sale. In October 2008, Michelle's mother filed a wrongful demise suit against Jason to try to compel him to answer questions about the case. He had 30 days to respond, but did not. 2 months later, on December 5th, a Wake County judge ruled on the wrongful demise claim, finding that Jason did take the life of his wife, ensuring that he cannot collect on the life insurance policy. Michelle's family was awarded $15.6 million in damages. They said that even though they never expected to collect anything from Jason, they were glad he was found responsible. Michelle's sister, Meredith, was awarded primary custody of then nearly 5-year-old Cassidy, with visitation rights for Jason on weekends, holidays, and other occasions. Only until, finally, after 37 months of building a case, a grand jury indicted Jason on a first-degree slaying charge on December 14, 2009. In June 2011, during his trial, he claimed that he was 169 miles away from his home, but the prosecutors said that he left the hotel shortly after his arrival, took time to disable security cameras in a side entrance stairwell, returned home, ended Michelle's life, and left their daughter alone with the body. In March 2012, after a retrial, Jason Young was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In April 2014, a third trial was ordered, but in August 2015, the application was denied. Jason will remain in the medium security Piedmont Correctional Institution in Salisbury, North Carolina. Even as a child, Kelsey Berreth had been fascinated by the concept of flight. In high school, she was watching crop dusters from her family farm in Moses Lake, Washington, and dreaming of one day taking flight herself. After graduating from high school, she set out to achieve her dream, enrolling in a flight program at a local community college. Kelsey not only became a pilot herself, but soon got a job working as a flight instructor so she could share her passion with others. In 2015, she met Patrick Fahey, a Colorado rancher and farrier, through an online dating site. Although he lived more than 1,100 miles away in Florissant, Colorado, a romance soon bloomed and Kelsey moved to Colorado, where she got a new job at a flight school there. Not long after, the couple learned that they were expecting a baby, and in October of 2017, they welcomed their daughter, Kaylee. On November 22nd, 2018, Kelsey and 1-year-old Kaylee went grocery shopping in Woodland Park, Colorado. 3 days later, a coworker received a message from her, stating that she would be taking the rest of the week off. A week later, her family reported her missing after Kelsey failed to answer any texts or calls. Her last message was tracked to Gooding, Idaho, a town that was approximately 700 miles away from her home in Colorado. Kelsey's then-fiancé Patrick was the primary suspect. On December 14th, the police executed a search warrant at his home. But then, the following day, they offered a $25,000 reward for information on the case. Patrick told the authorities that he had communicated off and on with Kelsey for 3 days after she was last seen. He said that they had broken up and that Kelsey seemed despondent afterwards and asked him to keep their daughter for a while because she was tired and stressed out. He told the police how worried he was about her. Initially, the authorities had to consider whether the young mom had simply gotten overwhelmed and walked away from her life. But when Kelsey's brother discovered a blood smear on the toilet in her condo, it became all too obvious that she had likely met a much darker fate. In a turn of events, 1 week later, Fahey was arrested as the authorities discovered possible evidence in the case. Kelsey and Fahey's daughter stayed in the custody of Kelsey's parents. On October 28, 2019, the trial for Fahey started. During the investigation, the detectives found that Fahey enlisted his mistress, an Idaho nurse and mother of two, Crystal Lee Kenny, 3 times to take the life of Kelsey. He tried to convince her by stating that Kelsey was an abusive mom and that he was scared that she would hurt their daughter. The first time, he directed Crystal Lee to knock on Kelsey's door and hand her coffee laced with sedatives. She delivered the coffee but not the substances. The second time, he sent her to Kelsey's home with a metal pipe and instructions to use it. Crystal Lee backed off and left the pipe in the driveway. The third time, he told her to wait outside Kelsey's home with a baseball bat and swing away at her, but Crystal Lee refused. By that time, Fahey was so frustrated that he finally decided to take Kelsey's life himself. He convinced Kelsey to play a game where she tried to guess the scent of different candles. After tying a sweater around her eyes as a makeshift blindfold, Fahey struck his unsuspecting fiancée in the head with a bat, while their young daughter was still in the house. A blood spatter expert testified in court that Fahey beat her with the bat 10 to 15 times. Jennifer Vieman, a senior deputy district attorney in Colorado's 4th Judicial Circuit, said, "After entering Kelsey's home with the key Fahey had provided, Crystal Lee encountered a significant blood pool on the floor in the living room. There was blood on the walls. There was blood on the couch, on the TV, on tables, in the kitchen." She added, "As she spends hours cleaning up this horrific bloody crime scene, she bags up items that cannot be cleaned, pillows, baby toys." Crystal Lee recalled that as she cleaned the scene at Kelsey's home, Fahey called, telling her to be sure she left no evidence behind and to look for knocked out teeth. After she cleaned, she then watched as Fahey lit Kelsey's remains on fire at his Colorado ranch. Although she agreed to help Fahey, she purposely left some blood spots behind for the authorities to find later. She then returned home to Idaho, taking Kelsey's phone with her. She used the phone to send text messages to Fahey and Kelsey's employer in an attempt to mislead investigators before destroying it. During the trial, the authorities also presented phone records, surveillance footage, and a jailhouse snitch who testified that Fahey wrote him notes behind bars, asking him to take out key witnesses from the case, including Crystal Lee and Kelsey's mom, Cheryl. On November 18, Patrick Fahey was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, plus 156 years. Crystal Lee was originally sentenced to 3 years, but had her sentence reduced to 18 months in 2021. Fahey was trying to appeal his guilty verdict. The defense team claimed that there was juror misconduct in the original trial, adding that the prosecutor's key witness is not credible. The defense also claims there was not enough evidence in the case, as Kelsey's body has not been recovered. On December 29, 2022, the original judgment in the case was affirmed. On August 4, 2002, 10-year-old best friends, Holly Marie Wells and Jessica Amy Chapman, attended a family barbecue in the small Cambridgeshire town of Soham in England. They left the barbecue to buy sweets without informing anyone and then never returned. Holly's mom entered her daughter's bedroom to invite the girls to say goodbye to her guests, only to discover both children missing. Alarmed, she and her husband, Kevin, searched the house and nearby streets. The police then descended on the small town to try and find the 2 missing schoolgirls. Their faces were plastered over every national and local newspaper, while more than 400 officers and countless members of the public were involved in the search. During the family barbecue, the girls changed into matching replica Manchester United football shirts. One belonged to Holly, and the other belonged to her older brother Oliver, and they were photographed in the outfits by Holly's mom. The memorable image of the girls, hours before they disappeared, became central to the search. On August 8th, CCTV footage of the girls, recorded minutes before their disappearance, was released to the public. Their distinctive outfits led to several alleged sightings of the girls. One man, who reported what he saw to the police, remembered seeing the girls on the day they went missing because he remarked to his wife, "Look, there is 2 little Beckhams over there." A local man, Ian Huntley, was in the public eye during the search for the girls. He granted several television interviews to media outlets such as Sky News and the BBC, in which he spoke about being the last individual to see the children alive. He was also heavily involved in the search for the pair and would regularly ask the officers questions about how their investigation was progressing and how long DNA evidence could survive before deteriorating. In one interview with Sky News correspondent Jeremy Thompson during the second week of the search, Ian claimed to be holding on to a glimmer of hope that the children would be found safe and well. But in one interview, he gave such suspicious answers to a journalist that the reporter went to the police with his concerns. PA news agency reporter Brian Farmer interviewed Ian and his girlfriend Maxine Carr at their home. Ian, who was reluctant to be photographed, explained that he had been speaking to the girls while washing his dog outside his house. But in his account provided to Brian, the girls made no comment about the animal, which Brian found improbable. He said, "I simply could not believe there were 2 children on Earth who would not see the dog and be saying, 'Oh, that dog is so cute, he is so wonderful.' I did not think what he was saying could be true." Brian said it was also strange that Ian, who barely knew the girls, had jumped in when Maxine was asked a question about stranger danger. Brian explained by saying the following, "I asked her from her knowledge of Holly and Jessica how she thought they might have reacted if, for example, a man had pulled up alongside in a car and said, 'Would you like a lift, girls?' The odd thing was that she did not answer the question because Ian jumped in straight away and he answered the question. Ian said, 'Holly would probably get in the car and quietly go, but Jessica would not.' I remember thinking, why is he so agitated? Why is he so emotional? The main thing that struck me when he answered the question was, well, how can he possibly know how they would react?" Almost 2 weeks after the girls went missing, on August 16th, Ian and Maxine were taken to the police station for questioning. On the same night, the police searched Ian's house, as well as the grounds of Soham Village College where he worked. The girls' Manchester shirts, which were charred and cut up, were recovered from a bin inside a hangar at the college. The following day, after 13 days of searching, on August 17th, the bodies of Holly and Jessica were found lying side by side near an airbase at Mildenhall in Suffolk, about 10 miles from their home. On August 20th, Ian Huntley was charged with 2 counts of slaying. He was originally seen as a witness rather than a suspect, partly because Maxine had provided an alibi for him and said that they were together. But it was later revealed that this was a lie, and she had actually been out in a bar in Grimsby at the time the girls disappeared. An inquest into their demises was held on August 23rd. Coroner David Morris said that the bodies of the girls were so badly decomposed that no precise cause of demise could be determined, but the most likely cause was asphyxiation. Huntley's mental state was tested, but he was deemed mentally competent to stand trial. He attempted to take his own life by taking 29 antidepressants, which he had accumulated in his cell. The staff initially feared that he might have overdosed, but he was returned to his prison cell within 48 hours. During Huntley's trial in November 2003, it was revealed that after getting snacks from a vending machine at their local leisure center, the 2 girls walked past caretaker Huntley's house. Huntley then claimed that his girlfriend, Maxine Carr, a teaching assistant at their school, was inside and lured them into his home before ending their lives in cold blood. It was also revealed that Huntley had gone back to where he dumped the bodies to cut off their clothes in an attempt to destroy any DNA evidence. But fibers recovered from the shirts proved to be a precise match to samples retrieved from Huntley's body and clothing. On December 17th, 2003, he was found guilty and sentenced to 2 terms of life in prison with a minimum of 40 years behind bars. He will not be considered for release until 2042 at the earliest. Jessica's mother, Leslie Chapman, said, "I think he was a time bomb waiting to go off, and both our girls were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I hope the next time I see him, it will be like we saw our daughters, and it will be in a coffin." Huntley has had some high-profile run-ins during his time in prison. In 2005, while in HMP Wakefield, he was scalded with boiling water by convicted spree perpetrator Mark Hobson. 2 years after being transferred to HMP Franklin in 2008, Huntley was taken to the hospital after he had his neck slashed by a convicted armed robber. In 2017, it was revealed that he also had a run-in with Yorkshire Ripper Peter Sutcliffe, who called Huntley names during an altercation at their Category A jail. The following year, in 2018, Huntley had expressed remorse at taking Holly and Jessica's life and recorded a confession. He said, "I am genuinely sorry, and it breaks my heart when it is reported I have no remorse. That I relish something. I do not. I cannot change anything. I cannot remove that day from history, what I have done." Carr was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison in 2003 after being found guilty of conspiring to pervert the course of justice for giving Huntley his false alibi. She was released from Foston Hall Prison in Derbyshire in May 2004 after serving half her sentence. Today, she is enjoying a life of freedom and has been given a new identity after the High Court granted her lifelong anonymity.